This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Liverpool 0, Everton 2. Reds Anfield derby record ended as injury despair deepens. Welcome to the Debrief Live here on the Blood Red YouTube channel. I'm Guy Clarke. Matt Addison is here with me as we get into where things went wrong for the Reds. Simply, Matt, over to you. Where did it all go wrong tonight?
Well, I mean, you could tell it wasn't going to be a good night. I think within the first 5 or 6 seconds, Everton launched a long ball, got caught in the wind. Ozan Kabak missed it, and immediately Liverpool put themselves under huge pressure from a corner. One of the things that we said all throughout the week, really, as soon as the Leipzig game finished, attention switched to Everton. What are the things that Everton are good at? What are the things that Liverpool are bad at? What was it? It was set pieces. And what did Liverpool do? Straight away, they put themselves under huge pressure. Nothing came of that particular corner, of course, but then it just sort of set the tone, really. Liverpool didn't start well. We know the issues that they've got, but I think it's beyond an excuse to sort of say, okay, they've had to field the 18th centre-back partnership this afternoon, but they have to perform better than that. They have to be better than that in attack. They have to move the ball quicker. There was a 10-minute spell at the start of the second half where you thought it was going to pick up. They started to move the ball a little bit quicker, but for the other 80 minutes or whatever it was in that game, I mean, Everton deserved the result. I'm sure we're going to talk about the penalty very, very shortly. It was a ridiculous decision, really, to give it, but I don't think you can really argue that changed the result. Liverpool never looked like they were going to equalise anyway, and okay, it's 2-0 rather than 1-0, but it's just a very, very similar pattern, I think, to the last few home games that Liverpool have had, and that is the worry now. Teams don't have to do anything special. They don't have to play out of the skins to win at Anfield anymore. It's quite simply, you turn up, you put players behind the ball, you know that Liverpool then won't score, and you know that at some point you'll get a chance. If you've got somebody as good as Richarlison going through one-on-one, you know he's probably going to score, and that was all it needed, really. That's the frustration, I think, for Liverpool, is not just that they've lost, but the way that they've lost. It was maybe pathetic is too strong a word, but it really was not good to watch tonight at all.
No, let's touch on the penalty then. Let's get into that. It was already 1-0, as you say. Liverpool probably by that stage had stopped looking like scoring. Might be fair to say, might not be, but the penalty, Trent sliding to try and initially block off the effort that's coming in on goal and just continuing to slide along the wet surface. He can't get out the way, but he does obviously impede Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
I've no idea how this has been given. I mean, I really have no idea. In real time, he thought it probably was because Trent has slid in. But Trent sat on the ground, he stood still, and Calvert-Lewin goes into the back of him. If anything, it's a free kick the other way, to be honest. I mean, it's one of those where it's just a coming together that happens, 50, 60 times in each half, probably, just because of the nature of football. But I can see sort of why he's given it in real time, but then Chris Kavanagh goes over to the screen, he has a look at it, and he takes about 5 seconds to look at it. He can only have seen it once in that period, and just decides
one look at it.
Decides that it is a foul. So I can't get my head around it. I think, to be honest, that the fact that the decision is so farcical is almost a blessing for Liverpool, because I think we're going to spend, or not just us, but everyone really is going to spend a bit of time talking about VAR, trying to get to the bottom of that, when really what they should be doing is starting the inquest into what's going wrong with Liverpool at this moment in time. So, look, the penalty obviously didn't help Liverpool. It took away any hope that they had left. But, I mean, it was very, very slim hope at that point in time anyway, that Liverpool could have got themselves back into this game. So, yeah, as I say, I think for Liverpool, it's probably not a bad thing that we can talk about VAR going against them, because, if you'd have taken that away, I think it would probably have felt even worse for Liverpool and their players this evening.
You say VAR going against Liverpool. That's been one of the themes of the season, as to his injuries. Jordan Henderson, the latest, struck by the centre-back curse.
Yeah, I mean, he tried his best to play on, didn't he? I thought that was a bit of a risk. If he'd have carried on, you could then make that injury worse and be out for longer. But yeah, it's just the latest thing, isn't it? It's almost not a surprise at this moment in time. You are just waiting. I saw a few people on Twitter before the game saying, I will wait for the team to come out and somebody will be missing, because that's just the way it's been for Liverpool this season. And, they're not wrong. We talked about the centre-backs, to have your 3 centre-backs plus your 2 midfielders turn centre-backs now out injured is just a nightmare situation. I mean, I didn't think Ozan Kabak covered himself in glory tonight, but I mean, it's hardly his fault. It sounds really, really harsh to sort of criticise him, because we know why he's in there, and he's only at the club because of a defensive injury crisis. So, yeah, look, obviously Jordan Henderson being out, we don't know for how long. It's going to be a big miss for Liverpool. We know that. If it is a muscle injury, and obviously that was enough to force him off today, then you wonder, is it going to be a few weeks? We have to wait and see. But if it is, it's a huge worry for Liverpool. On top of all of the other injury worries, I think he would be probably the biggest one at this moment in time, in terms of the players that were fit, in terms of, obviously you wouldn't want anybody to be injured. But I think if you could pick anybody out of the 11 that started today, probably Jordan Henderson would be the one that you absolutely did not want to see go out, because it's leadership. It's the fact that he's settled into that centre-back. We were talking in the lead up to the game, weren't we, about is there an advantage to having Henderson and Kabak together just for a little bit of stability, if nothing else. And obviously soon into the game, that has been taken away from them as well. So, yeah, I think it would be a huge miss for Liverpool. They've got options in one or two other areas of the pitch. They certainly haven't got options in that area of the pitch. And I think it's more than that. It's the leadership. It's, the dictating the tempo, the passing, everything that Jordan Henderson brings to this Liverpool team is all of the things really that we're talking about this Liverpool team as a whole really being lacking in the last few matches. So if they were lacking it with him, they're certainly going to be even more lacking without him. And yeah, it's really, really unfortunate. It's one of those, isn't it? In these big games, when a player like that goes down injured, Liverpool are already one goal behind. You just sort of think, again, this is not going to be Liverpool's day. And unfortunately, it's only really got worse from that stage.
Yeah, it certainly has. We've spoken for a couple of weeks now about the title race and hopes having been dashed and gone. All focus about the top four today. Felt like a real opportunity. Takumi Minamino doing his thing for Southampton. Chelsea dropping points at Southampton in the early kickoff. It's a derby defeat. That always feels bad, but I suppose it's compounded at the fact that it was a chance to draw level with Chelsea in fourth.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I wrote a story earlier today talking about Takumi Minamino giving Liverpool a big Champions League boost, and of course they've blown it themselves now. I mean, Chelsea actually have ended up drawing the game. They've actually gained on Liverpool from a position today when it should not have been allowed to be the case. Liverpool going into this game, they shouldn't need any extra motivation. It's a Merseyside derby. Okay, there's no fans. We know the circumstances, the situation, but every single one of those players should have been right up for the game right from the first whistle. Just because it's a derby, forget the fact that, you've got an opportunity to move 6 points clear of Everton. You've got an opportunity to get closer to that top four again, gain some ground on the teams above them. But
on that as well, Matt, I suppose everything that went on in the Goodison derby would have added to motivation.
And that as well, yeah, 100%. We saw Virgil van Dijk was in the stands today. We know, obviously, what has happened with him, and there's just so many things that you thought Liverpool are going to be at it. They're going to start well. They're going to be quick. They're going to be intense. But they just didn't do that. And that's the frustration. I think it's a missed opportunity on so many different fronts for Liverpool, because they are fast getting themselves into a position where they are playing. Well, they are playing catch up now, aren't they? In terms of the Champions League, they're going to have to catch up on the teams above them. There's teams like Aston Villa, I think, have still got at least 2, maybe 3 games in hand on Liverpool. I'm not sure at this point in time, but there's so many other teams up there. It's so close. You have to sort of at least be drawing with the teams around you, and Liverpool have obviously not done that. I don't think Everton and Aston Villa and these teams ultimately will get into the top four, to be honest. But at this moment in time, it's a real struggle to see Liverpool being in there as well.
Yeah, I think I'm right in saying that Everton's game in hand on Liverpool is against Aston Villa. But yeah, as you say, as it stands, Aston Villa with 3 games in hand on Liverpool. Of course, they play Leicester City this weekend. But before we go and trying to put our finger on it, where is the quick fix for Liverpool, if not the fix for everything going forward? How do they get back to winning ways? It's 4 consecutive home defeats, the first time that this has happened since the 1920s.
Yeah. I mean, the quick fix, I don't know whether there is one. That's the issue for Liverpool. We know that
don't say that, Matt.
Well, they've played so well on Tuesday night. We know that they can do it. It's just, I can't really put my finger on what's the difference between a Champions League last 16 game in Budapest and a Merseyside derby a few days later. I mean, the team was exactly the same until Jordan Henderson went off. I mean, what is the difference between those two performances? It's an absolutely colossal difference in the sort of actual reality of it, but it should not be the case that Liverpool have been so inconsistent. I mean, you look at the way that they finished those goals the other day. They capitalised on mistakes. I know they didn't necessarily create a lot for the game against Leipzig. Leipzig tended to create those chances by their own mistakes for Liverpool. But, even so, I mean, look, it's such a weird one to put your finger on it, because essentially the opponents that Liverpool come up against now, and I think it's Fulham, isn't it, the next home game at Anfield in a couple of weeks' time. If you're Fulham, you know exactly what to do against Liverpool, because you've seen Brighton, Burnley, and now Everton do it. All you have to do is put players behind the ball, counter-attack, and you'd imagine that they could get a result. So, look, it's a big thing ahead for Jurgen Klopp this week. I think it will help Liverpool that they've got a full week to prepare for Sheffield United. But again, Sheffield United are one of those teams, aren't they? They're going to sit in. They're going to be sitting with probably at least two banks of four, maybe a 4 and a 5. It doesn't bode well, I don't think, for the future for Liverpool in terms of trying to turn this around. They have to do something different. They have to try something. Maybe Naby Keita can come on and make a change. But again, his fitness, can you rely on him? Maybe Shaqiri can come in from the start. Maybe you're going to have to wait until Diogo Jota's back. But when's that going to be? Probably at least another fortnight, maybe 3 weeks away for him as well. So, look, there are reasons to think that Liverpool can change this around. But at this moment in time, it's really, really difficult to try and analyse where it's gone wrong for Liverpool, because essentially everything that could have gone wrong for them very much has done. Just again, after so many weeks of this being the case, it's just happened once again tonight.
Yeah, Chelsea actually to come at home before the Fulham game. But yeah, it's Sheffield United, Chelsea and Fulham, the next 3 up for Liverpool in the Premier League. As you say, I suppose, final point, they have to get back to winning ways before too long. Otherwise, we've spoken about the title being gone. Next, it'll be top 4.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that Chelsea game now becomes absolutely enormous, doesn't it? Two teams that essentially are going to be scrapping it out, I think, to get into that top 4. I mean, if ever there was a game that Liverpool need to turn up and perform for, I think it's that one. It's one of those games as well that you think possibly could favour Liverpool. Chelsea probably will come out and try and attack them a little bit. They probably won't sit as deep as some of these other teams. Maybe if they do that, maybe if they play in a similar sort of way to what Leipzig did, maybe Liverpool can get something out of that match. But look, I mean, it's not very often that we're sat here talking about Liverpool losing 3 consecutive home games, but if they were to lose that one, I think you'd be incredibly worried about them getting into the top 4. I mean, I know they're still in the Champions League. They've got 1 foot at least into the quarterfinals of that competition. But, if in a month's time we're sat here talking about Liverpool having to win a quarterfinal, a semi-final and a final to get into the Champions League next season, because, make no mistake, Liverpool simply have to get into that top 4. Financially, they have to get in there if they want to be competing with Manchester City and teams like that moving forward under Jurgen Klopp over the next 2 or 3 seasons. That is the absolute bare minimum that they've got to achieve this season. And if we're talking about them having to win the Champions League to get back into that competition, then it just adds huge pressure for Liverpool. So, yeah, I think Chelsea now becomes absolutely massive. Sheffield United before then. Look, it'll only take a couple of wins for the mood to completely change for Liverpool. But at this moment in time, it's really, really hard to see where those 2 wins come from.
Yeah, 4 consecutive Anfield Premier League defeats for the Reds, left in the doldrums after Derby defeat to Everton. But from myself, Guy Clarke and Matt Addison, thanks for your time and your company. Make sure you stick with us here on Blood Red for Jurgen Klopp's post-match press conference. We'll also be back with the Blood Red podcast on Monday afternoon as we delve deeper into where Liverpool do find the strength to turn this one around. But as I say, from myself, Guy Clarke and Matt Addison, thanks for your time and your company. It's bye for now.